Yes, I am director and I am the founder of ICRO Women's Rights Organization. The organization was set up in 2002 when my own interpreter was become a victim of honor killing. I remember at that time when I called police and they told me this is your culture. When I told them that this is the case of honor killing, her husband took her back from UK. She was a British citizen and they killed her there in Iraq. And when I told police about this story, they told me this is your culture. We have to respect that. Otherwise, you will call us racist. It was when I was thinking women like my interpreter, she could speak very well English, she had no problem, she could even have access to police, but she was killed and now they are telling me it's your culture. So this issue has been justifying under the name of culture, whereas in my opinion it was a crime and should be considered as such, but not a culture. It was then why when I established ICRO, at that time we called it Iranian and Kurdish Women's Rights Organization, only to help Iranian and Kurdish, but our clients actually become much wider, and we had received women from all over Middle Eastern and South Asian, and we thought then we have to take out the barrier in the name, and now we are serving all women from Middle Eastern, North African and Afghan women, let's say in languages Farsi, Kurdish, Dari, Arabic and Turkish women. They are women we are serving, and all of them are women who are at risk or at harm of honor-based abuse, forced marriage, child marriage, female genital mutilation, virginity test, and any other form of violence that Hanana just mentioned. We have got.
Sorry, can I just ask you on that? How good do you feel that the police are in identifying the different, making the distinction between honour-based abuse and other forms of domestic abuse?
I think it's not an easy task, I have to say, for police officers. If you will hear my point directly, is that it's like a lottery for many women to find a police officer still up to date. When I'm talking here after nearly 20 years of our organization fight for this and make it really become an issue to be identified as a violence, as a form of violence against women. I can just say recently we had a case, not in London, in another city, when police went in for a woman. She has been beaten by her husband, and neighbors called police twice, not herself. And both of those times when police came to the home, the husband ordered her to cover herself with a blanket and tell police that she is ill. And police even didn't take her to another room in front of the husband asking if she is okay or not. So, I mean, things like that still is happening. So it's scary for many of them. In London, it's a bit better, but in many other cities, this is a huge problem, and it's damaged the trust for police and for other people, you know, if they are not going to be served. Shall I say here, it's not only police, but social services. It's another big organization that really don't do the recording. In a research that we have done in 2020, the 50% social services didn't record 50% of forced marriages in the UK. That means forced marriage and child marriage happened. They knew about that, but they didn't record it. So it's another area I think we need to look at that, and housing as well.
Thank you. Can I go back to Caroline Dinenage, please?
Oh, thank you very much. I've lost my last couple of questions. I was too busy reading some of the earlier ones. Hold on, no, I've got it. Yes, this is really important. I just want to know to what extent your organisations are funded by the government or other organisations, and sort of via which funding streams, because the Violence Against Women and Girls strategy states the need to work with community advocates. I want to know whether that's happening, what your view on that, whether you're working with government and local government, to what extent they're asking for your support and your expertise. And actually, what more the government can do to better support specialist service providers like yourselves. Diana, can we start with you?
Yes, of course, thank you. I can say about 45% of our fund is from government, which is very good. We are very helpful, but mainly it is from London Council, which is very much tightening us to focus on London. We have good funds from other projects specifically for counselling and for our refuge as well, because we have a refuge and we have got a team of advisors and counsellors. So this fund is great. We are grateful, and it's very helpful in terms of having our professional advisor and worker in place to be able to help and save lives, really, in reality situation. But one of the problem I have to say that what we need a national also fund for organizations, because I can say nearly 50% of our clients are from outside London. And by fund, we are restricted to London, but we cannot just tell them just to go to another organization, especially if they trust your organization and speaking the same language, you cannot just turn them down. And the other problem is that all the funds from governments is either for 1 year or 2 years, and really took lots of energy and resources from small organizations like us to be able all the time to worry about fundraising, applying for fund and reporting. So I think funding is really crucial, and I think it needs to be for a longer period and more, especially for BME community and Black and minoritized communities. We are really suffering much harder, especially during the course of Corona, and especially now due to the crisis of cost of living, which affect our clients very badly. Especially in our community, we are fairly small community from Middle Eastern. It's about 40 years they established in the UK. So our clients are more isolated. In case of honor killing, they haven't got community support or friend support. So they are living in a very small money from the charities like us, from Social Black Sister and other organizations. And with no recourse to public fund, it's even harder. I can say that every month we are paying nearly £1,500 to just support women in the hotels or refuges from minority community. And the problem is that many refugees don't take them easily because there are no recourse to public fund. And the fund from government, because it's for a very short time, so most of the refugees are worried to losing funds, losing money. They don't accept them. So we are paying from either our reserve or from donations that we get from people. We are supporting women. There has been time that they spend about 2 weeks in a hotel until we find them a safe place. So all the funding from no recourse to other needs that women has, from funding a small and old computer for them, to everything. It costs money, which put the strain on organizations, small organizations like us.
Thank you. Sawat.
Yeah, just to add to what Diane said, I think funding for smaller providers, especially specialist buy-in for organizations, is a huge issue. We've seen 2/3 of the specialist sector just vanish. And those that are left are put under extreme pressure because we can't deal with the level of cases that are coming forward. Last year, we had an increase of 435. And the result of that was we lost staff because there were no other services that we can actually refer them on to. Currently, our refuge service has been without any local authority funding for over 15 years. We're relying on small pockets of funding from whether that's lottery, Tudor Trust, various funders, which is very short term. So what's happening is that when there's no security for the staff, because this could be a year's funding, 2 years funding, we're losing staff, and then we have staff retention issues. Funding for smaller specialized projects to support forced marriage and honor-based abuse is a huge issue.
Thank Thank you.
We've got our local West Midlands PCC has come forward and they provided a lot of support. We've now set up UK's first forced marriage and honour-based abuse hub with a range of services where we will have specialised staff delivering services.
Thank you very much. Very quickly.
Yes,
Nana,
so
final word
yeah,
from you.
we've got about 20 different sources of funding, and yes, some of that does include government funding, but we've really had to fight for it every time. It's really hard to get that money consistently and for a longer period of time. And for holistic services, we think holistic services are quite crucial in order to help women with a range of issues that they need to address. We have a no-recourse fund. Again, that's dependent on donations. Currently, we're running the Home Office pilot. That's due to come out to end at the end of March 2023. After that, we don't know how we're going to fund those cases with no recourse to public funds. Nationally, I think there needs to be a ring-fenced central government funding that is focused on buy and force services. At the moment, there is a pot, but it's not very large amount. And it doesn't necessarily just focus on black and minority women's organisations like ourselves. It's a much wider fund for other buy and force services. And IMCAN has estimated that we need about £97 million per year for buy and force specialist services for women on gender-based violence in black and minority communities to really meet the need out there. The Domestic Abuse Commissioner's report recently said that buy and force services actually are 6 times less likely to get funding from government than other services more generally. And historically, they've been underfunded, so I think it's really important for those services to survive and develop and to thrive. They need more funding, not only state funding, but also more state political support, because I think sometimes due to discrimination, those services don't get the same support politically that they need. And that is also problematic, that if the state fails to give us support, we don't get it from the community and religious leaders from within our own communities. And we need that support in order to say that these services do need to exist because they enable survivors and victims to escape honour-based abuse.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Can I just ask you to expand on that comment that due to discrimination, is the term you used, that services for black and minoritized communities don't get the funding they need?
Well, I think we had to go to court in 2008 to give you an example, because our local authority tried to cut services for specialist services for black minority women and domestic abuse, which we were providing. They wanted a more generic service. They said that race inequality no longer existed, so they didn't need a specialist services, except the race inequality has increased particularly in a large South Asian, in a borough which a large South Asian community, with a whole range of other minority communities, that they weren't really addressing their needs. The courts found in our favour. They said the council had failed to carry out a full equalities impact assessment, and as a result, the court found in our favour, and they said that the council was actually racially discriminating against women who are facing, domestic abuse.
And can I just ask a quick question to finish? The impact of both COVID and the cost of living crisis, could all of you very briefly tell me whether that has seen an increase in honour-based abuse and how that's manifested itself? I'll start with Diana.
Yes, definitely it's affected. During the corona, we had a considerable increase in our clients coming to us, especially when the family was, during the lockdown, when the family were together. So the cases of HPV were increased. And also because of the living crisis, many of men especially become more aggressive and, because of the stress and everything toward women. So it has been increased, and I am sure it will increase in the future as well.
Thank you. Sowat.
Yeah, I think the cases increased, and one of the things that we did was to speak to some of the cases that came forward, and it was alarming to hear that a lot of the victims that came forward actually said, I've always been a victim, but I put up with it because he used to go to work and I had to put up with him for only a few hours. And because now he's home 24 hours, I can no longer put up with it. And that's why I come forward to get help. And that is quite sad that somebody has lived for many years with the abuse and only left because now it was prolonged for the whole of the day. We did see a very significant increase, and some of the figures I shared before were during the pandemic when we had 435% increase in the cases coming forward.
Thank you. Hanana.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we saw a surge in during COVID. I think there was about 46% in our overall figures increase for the first year of COVID. We particularly found a problem for women who were facing domestic abuse, honour-based abuse, and who were migrant women who had insecure immigration status or no recourse to public funds. Refugees, they don't normally always take them in because they have no recourse. But even if we funded that their placement for a while, it was really hard to get them into a refuge because they were oversubscribed. And women couldn't move out because of COVID and because of the lockdown. We had to set up our own hotel project, which we were luckily eventually got funded by MOPAG, but the national government wouldn't fund it, where we had to house women with no recourse to public funds because there was just a surge in demand in those cases to avoid destitution and homelessness and to encourage them to come out and come forward. We had to set up a specialist project. In terms of the cost of living crisis, of course, that's having an impact not only on our no recourse fund. We've had to increase how much money we can give to women. It's still below universal credit rates, and still, therefore, it's not sufficient. But women, obviously, they still don't have enough money, particularly migrant women, to deal with day-to-day living. One of the saddest comments that one of the women gave to me is that she said, I only eat in the evenings, I only eat toast and have hot chocolate because I can't afford to not feed the children or not keep them warm, and therefore she's sort of depriving herself and sacrificing her own need for those of her children. And I think that story is repeated everywhere.
Thank you. Can I just ask if there is any more information that you want to send into the committee, please do so in writing. We'd be very pleased to hear it. And if there is anything that you feel that we've not asked that we should have done, then please do let us know. But I think that means I have to